It is Friday, April 11th, 2025. I'm Heath Lambert, and the biggest story of the week is the Trump Tariff Turmoil.
Financial markets around the world are reeling this morning as the escalating trade war heightens fears of a global economic meltdown.
We are, of course, watching Wall Street, where markets have gone up after President Trump announced a 90-day pause on the vast majority of countries. The exception, China.
After 104% tariffs on China came into effect overnight, reports say that Americans are already stockpiling goods in case of price spikes.
Because of the tariffs, we have $7 trillion already committed to be invested in the United States.
On Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, President Donald Trump announced new tariffs on imported goods coming into the United States. The new tariffs went into effect this week on Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Later that same day, the president announced a pause on the new tariffs for the dozens of nations his administration says have reached out to negotiate terms with the United States. The exception to this is the nation of China, which is making clear their willingness to engage in an ever-increasing trade war with the United States. Reaction to this has been all over the place.
Senator, you represent the state and the city where the stock market is located, the most important stock market in the world. That stock market now has spent a week suffering from the greatest drop in stock market history caused by the single action of a president. What do you say to Wall Street tonight?
What I say to Wall Street is this man is a menace. You know, Donald Trump, this is about the worst decision, or one of the worst decisions Donald Trump has made, and given his presidency, that's saying a whole lot. Why are they doing this? Why are they imposing such tariffs on people? I'll tell you, there's one reason, Lawrence. They want to use this money for tax breaks for billionaires. And they're making the average American family pay, it's now estimated about $5,000 a year. These are across the board tariffs, prices of everything, whether it's food or medicine or gasoline or a car or clothing or furniture or buying a home are going to go way up.
That was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and his comments represent one stream of response to the tariff announcement, which is simple dislike of the president. This kind of partisan disagreement would hardly support any action from the president. Another kind of response has been more common.
U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff-induced market mayhem appears to just be getting started. Trading in European markets now underway, and these right here are the numbers. They speak for themselves. They are following Asia's lead with serious losses. Asian markets, they've also been plunging. Just look at these numbers here as well. Major hits across the board. Hong Kong's Hang Seng hit the hardest of all. U.S. stock futures, they are not faring, or at least they're not faring any better. The Dow, NASDAQ, and also the S&P 500 futures, they are all down ahead of the new trading week.
The dominant media coverage has reported on the fear-inducing consequences of an increase in tariffs by detailing the wild fluctuations in the stock market or predicting dramatic increases in consumer prices. These responses miss the deeper events in this week's biggest story. The real story is that Trump's tariffs are a response to a pattern of other countries charging Americans dramatically higher tariffs than the United States charges them. This disparity makes it easier and cheaper for foreign countries to get their goods into the United States than it is for Americans to get what we produce to other places. For decades, presidential administrations have allowed this to happen, fueling America's consumer economy with cheap goods from other nations. But President Trump has identified this as a problem because the increased expense of getting goods into other places has led to a decline in American production of goods. One legitimate conservative response to this decline in production is to focus on liberty, keep government out of these kinds of decisions, and let the economy sort itself out. But from the perspective of President Trump, government is already involved in the steep tariffs imposed on Americans from foreign governments. He is determined to use the power of his office to correct what he perceives as a problem. President Trump campaigned on this issue and is doing what he said he would do. This story is not going away, and there will be plenty of other opportunities to talk about it on future editions of this show. I also suspect there is significantly more happening behind the scenes that the president is not sharing. I'm certain much of that will become clear in the course of time. For this week, I want to focus on the element of this story that reveals a problem in the way Americans approach public policy. To grasp that problem, you need to understand an important part of the relationship between political matters and financial ones. The world of politics has to do with the way people make decisions regarding issues of power and governance. The world of finance has to do with the management of money. A crucial principle about the relationship between politics and finance is that political decisions pay off more quickly than financial ones, but financial consequences can never be avoided. We all know this is true. For decades, the American public has been bribed by those in elected office with political promises that offer quick payoffs. Politicians know we can't afford those promises, but are happy to pay for them with over $36 trillion in debt, because they know political decisions pay off quicker than financial ones. They ignore the corollary truth that financial consequences can never be avoided. They make it someone else's problem. The people to blame for this are Americans who accept political quick fixes and pass off the financial consequences to generations who will have to figure out how to pay in the future for what we enjoy today. This is the problem in play in this week's biggest story. The stock market fluctuations and price increases that Americans are so worried about in the short term have nothing to do with whether our trade policy is right for America in the long term. This short-term pain tempts us to repeat the cycle of accepting the quick political payoff and push the inevitable financial consequences off to someone else. This is a reckless, immature, and unsustainable way to live. The Bible teaches Christians that it is our job to figure out the right thing to do and then determine to do it. James 3:17 says, "Whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." It is sinful to avoid doing the right thing in the long term because it hurts in the short term. The good news of Jesus Christ teaches that God does right when Jesus endures the short-term pain of the cross for the long-term benefit of saving sinners. Nobody wants short-term pain in stock market turmoil and price increases. But what if Americans have been pursuing trade policies that place us in economic decline, enrich our enemies, and imperil our future? Smart people disagree on how Americans should respond to the high taxes on the goods from other countries. The task right now should not be the quick fix, but a determination to figure out how to address these matters in the best possible way. You can be certain that Donald Trump believes he knows what he is doing. Because he's the one in charge, we all need to pray he is right. We will find out together if he is. I'm certain when we find out, it will be the biggest story of the week. In the meantime, I hope you'll join me next Friday when we examine next week's biggest story.